So it is test day. We are going to be taking all of the 3 recipes we've done so far, plus the one that we've done today for bath melts. So a bath melt that goes into the tub provides extra moisture to your bath time self-care experience. We're going to see what they all do. Because while looking at a recipe is one thing, performance is what actually matters, especially if you are a maker that is selling and or giving your beautiful cosmetic creations to other people. But first, we're going to be going over my new recipe, what I will now be using for my line forevermore. And I will tell you more about that in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And you are here for week 9 of year 3 and video 4 of the bath melt playlist, wherein we are looking at 4 different recipes of bath melts, talking about the pros and the cons of each of them, as far as performance goes, packageability, shippability, cost. Cost is always a huge factor with all of this, all of the things. And today we are going to be looking at my recipe, the recipe that I've ultimately decided on after doing these tests and really, playing with the ratios for sure. So let's get to the video because we've got a lot to cover, now. Okay, so final recipe, which is ultimately my recipe that I will be using, forevermore, as well as a test day for all of these guys. Now, because my recipe had more powder than, liquids than the butters, and the first 2 recipes had basically, well, either none at all powders and just a whole lot of butters and waxes, I thought I would sort of do the best of both worlds for this and give you a recipe that is basically half and half of powders and the butters and the waxes. Now, I'm doing this because, again, as I have said in the previous videos, I really do like what baking soda and citric acid, so essentially a bath bomb base, does to bath melts in that it helps them fizz out faster. And it also does help them as far as stability for, shipping. These are the bath melts that we put extra mica in from the very first recipe, the dark blue ones there. And these are the ones that I just made. Now, I did not put this mold into the fridge or the freezer. Did not freeze any of these up. And remember how I said in the last video, my original recipe can be a little bit fragile when you're getting them out of the mold unless you fully freeze them. And I didn't really end up with any issues for the majority of them, but because I didn't cool them down properly, yeah, I still got one that broke. But that's okay, because we're going to use that broken one for the test of, this one, as well as all of the other 3 recipes that we've done. So let's go to the test and, see which one we ultimately end up liking the best. Okay, now on to the test of all of these, and I went ahead and put the total melt time for each of them in each little section there because I sped up a lot of these videos / cut some things out because some of them weren't really melting at all, and the one that was not really melting at all was the first recipe that we tried. It had a really interesting layer on top of it that it was really difficult to break through, and as you can see, it's really not melting at all. Now, the second recipe, it's melting better, and it does start floating, which is very cool. We had a total melt time of about 7 minutes for that. And I still didn't super love that because it took 7 minutes. And realistically, I get bored in the bathtub by then. So recipe 3, That's my original recipe. It takes 3.5 minutes to fizz out, and as you can see, it zooms around the tub, which is very nice. It has the nice cool foam coming from the polysorbate 80. And for recipe 4, again, basically even parts between the powders and your butters and your e-wax. No polysorbate in this, just the e-wax. So the polysorbate that is within the actual e-wax and no addition. It's actually very cool. It does this very kind of slow, fun zoom around the tub. I guess a slow zoom is not the, okay, you get it. But ultimately, if I didn't have my recipe number 3, my original recipe, I would love recipe number 4. And actually, I ended up loving it so much that that has become my new recipe. The inclusion of the e-wax, replacing the polysorbate with an e-wax, for me was absolutely delightful because of the ease of pouring. And the polysorbate, and especially the higher amounts of the, the powders in that one, in my original, does make it a little bit difficult. But as you can see, recipe 3 and 4, they are melting and blooming out beautifully. Recipe 1, 10 plus minutes trying to get this bad boy to melt. Never really did super melt down. It was a lot. I ended up having to finally just squish it to make it do stuff. Fun bubbling though. That's kind of cute. And the one in recipe 2, yeah, it was just a slightly faster version of recipe 1. Now, in all cases, I did a water test as well when I basically got bored of looking at these. And for recipe 1 and 2, just like I was concerned about, it's way too slick. The water itself is very, very slick. For recipe 3 and 4, because you're not overloading it with just primarily butters and waxes, things that can make you slip, you didn't experience any sort of slickness within the actual tub, which is really good. And so I'm thinking, yeah, for me personally, the thing that I love the most is really going to be recipe 3, but realistically recipe 4. Because again, it melts down in a reasonable time frame. You got that 4 minutes. It ticks all the boxes for me as far as shippability, stability, price point, all of the things. And I'm not left with a big old mess. So this was, before I actually drained for the first recipe. And that's what was left over afterwards. So the e-wax didn't really help with any of the, micas. And then that is recipe 2. Before I drained it, and then recipe 2 thereafter, nice and clean. I like that a lot. That definitely adding that baking soda and citric acid binding to the fats, that worked. And this was recipe 3 after I drained it. There was no need to photograph the before. And then there is recipe 4 after I drained it. No oily residue left behind for 3 and 4. A little bit for 2, quite a lot for 1. And there it is, all 4 of these recipes in test. And, the recipe that I'm going to use from now on. And like I said, we all actually choose the recipes that we make based on what we ultimately want our product to do. But for me, I think it's pretty obvious as to why I am going with this recipe for my line from now on. It really ticks all the boxes for me. First off, it ticks the price point box for sure. It's not an overly expensive product, so I don't have to raise my prices for my customers, for sure. 2, the addition of essentially the bath bomb powder, your baking soda and your citric acid, that reaction within this, for me, does what should be done within a bath product in order to disperse everything around the tub and not have any oil slicks. So there's that. 3, the emulsifier, while I think it is sort of overkill in something like this, it really does perform better. I mean, as far as being able to pour it and ship it and package it, I love. Speaking of shipping and packaging, that's another reason why I love this. So yeah, this particular recipe, it produces a very firm, and bath product that, because it's not made of kind of fragile, easy to melt, strictly oils and waxes, because it has that baking soda and that citric acid in there that's doing fun stuff to the actual equation, it's highly less likely to melt in transit. So I'm definitely here for that. And as far as the usability, yeah, this ticks all the boxes for me too. I don't like the recipe that has the wax and butters without the inclusion of the baking soda and the citric acid. It's too heavy, too much. My skin feels sticky and like it has a film. on afterwards. And again, if I wanted a product like that, I would just use a lotion bar or a massage bar. Kind of the same thing. But for a bath product, something that I'm going to be soaking in, moving around in, having to get out of, the last thing that I want for myself, as well as my end users, is the potential of a slip. But those are just my preferences. And so, yeah, I like this one the best. Why don't you all let me know in the comments which one you liked better? Because just like with soap making, there is more than one way to make a bath melt. And realistically, the ultimate recipe that you decide to go with, the way that you decide to make it, is going to depend completely on what you want. Performance, price point, how you want your skin to feel afterwards, how your customers want their skin to feel afterwards. All of those things. So there really is no wrong answer here, for sure. I hope you guys had fun with this playlist. Let me know, again, which one you like better. I definitely have fun doing these playlists. It's very cool to be able to focus all of my time and attention and thoughts on one specific project and give you all of the information that I possibly can from this brain that has a whole lot of stuff in it at all times, in a way that maybe makes it easier for you. Because I do recognize that I tend to ramble. And realistically, I'm only normal for these particular videos, for the deep dive playlist. So if you found me through this playlist, you're going to be in for a wildly different person for my non-deep dive playlists. Keep that in mind. For those that do know that, my sudsers, and are okay with my very fast-moving brain, hi. Thank you for existing. I hope you guys had fun with this playlist. I hope you had fun with this deep dive. Coming up next for week 10 is going to be the winners of the last Project Soapway Challenge. My bar will be starting that all off. It was a journey. I'm excited to tell you about it. And of course, all of the winners, because I love oohing and awing over their gorgeous creations way more than mine, because they definitely seem to do this a lot better than me in a lot of ways. So be on the lookout for that. Week 11 is going to be another deep dive playlist, and we are going to be doing water discounts. What that means, what it is, what it do, all the things. So like and subscribe if you haven't. I was just talking to the sudsers specifically that have liked and are subscribed. But you know, if you want to be one of them, that message is for you too. Just click that little button. Yeah, I'm out of here for today, but I will see all of you guys again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.